Well, hello, hello, and welcome to yet another exciting episode of Skeptics and Seekers. I'm your host, David, and joined by my good friend Andrew. This is the second podcast this week, in case anyone's counting, and also the second show that we'll be doing on marriage. Andrew, I ran over your traditional, hey, how you doing? Go ahead.
Well, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, okay. Um, Yeah, I knew there was a reason I ran over that. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about marriage again. This is a supplemental. Supplemental. There will be no video for this video because it's just a quick one, and you're not going to be very much entertained by my facial features and hand gestures today anyway. So, um,
I prefer videos of quick ones. Um, okay,
okay.
um,
So
probably not quite the marriage topic. Okay,
there
sorry about
is,
that.
once again, that's coming in a couple of weeks. By the way, I'm serious about that, guys. Sex show in a couple of weeks. It's coming. It's coming. By the way, coupla in my language doesn't actually mean two,
I
but
just I just want to
it's
know
coming.
if for that episode you're going to rename the show pornseekers.com.
No, I will not. Uh,
It's such
yeah,
a good idea.
yeah. Thanks for
Uh,
asking. Not at all. But yeah. So I'm gonna jump in. Here's what we're gonna do. Talking fast, given some of the stuff that we want to talk about, we're gonna focus on two things that I didn't cover in the first show and also in the blog. I left those intentionally to be discussed later. One of them is the effects of uh, or the implications of children and child rearing in marriage, especially if one took my radical point of view. And I'm going to get even more radical before I'm done with this topic. And the other is divorce. When divorce is a good idea. I didn't talk about that at all either. Now, just so you know, David Russell will be on this coming up weekend, and so we will be covering this topic again, and I think we will be talking about the blog and the original show that we should have done. So there will be a proper discussion on this. So those of you who think that I am trying to avoid a proper discussion with a person that could not be further from the truth. I want to start with uh, a blog comment from Darren. Just kind of kick this off. Um, and I thought I had the comment in front of me, and it turns out uh, I did not. So, okay. Yes, here we go. This is so on the in the blog post, skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. If you go there, sign in your Discuss account, you can join the conversation. You'll be able to read my blog post there on the subject. Once again, it gets a little bit radical, but I plan to get way more radical than I have so far. One of the things that I said when talking about marriage is, in putting together my ideal version of what marriage would be, I want to clarify that I don't believe in marriage. I think marriage is a bad idea. But if marriage is something that has to be done, I put in some uh, restrictions and limitations that I thought would be a good idea for marriage. One of them, if children are involved, each participant must show that they are capable of taking care of their own kids independently. The reason I put Darren is about to make a comment uh, here to follow up, so I'll just read that real quick. I would take out this one if someone isn't capable of taking care of their kid. A marriage to someone who might be able to would be a good thing. If you prevent it because of the parent, the kid is the one that suffers. Plus, you are denying the parent the opportunity to learn from one who is potentially capable. All right, so Darren, I appreciate the spirit of this idea. However, I think it misses my greater point. And my greater point is I don't like marriage at all. And so if the state has to certify people to be married, the state should be interested in protecting people as much as possible. When a woman, I'm just using this as an example, a single parent woman um, has a kid and can't take care of the kid, and then she rushes into a marriage to find someone to help her take care of the kid, she is putting herself in a tremendously dangerous situation, a tremendously codependent situation. It's the kind of situations that lead to terrible abuse in many cases for the woman and the child. Now, I do believe that two parents in general, there are a lot of caveats to this, but I don't have time for all the caveats. Two parents who are committed to parenting are better than one parent who's committed to parenting. So I don't have a problem with that numerically. But the point that I think you and many people would be missing is that we don't need marriage to have two committed parents. And this is where Andrew comes in. I don't know how much you want to talk about your personal life, Andrew, but let's just say that. I think that Andrew would probably have some things to say about that. So before turning the mic over to him, I just want to say that you can have two people who are committed to raising a child without marriage. Marriage does not increase commitment. It does not increase uh, a safer, better environment for raising a child. There's nothing that marriage magically conveys on a person, and it does not lock people in to a life that they ultimately don't want. Now, it might culturally, but legally it doesn't. Why do we know that? Because people get out of marriages all the time when they have children. And I would say that a broken family, when children are involved, is a much worse situation than, say, a single parent who's committed to marriage. So, with that, it's a lot of words, talking fast. I'm going to turn it over to Andrew and let him pick up on the theme.
So I'll start with a little bit of self-revelation. Yes, as most of the listeners who are regulars know from the shows you and I do together and the properties over at RP, Still Unbelievable and Proscenium, they know that I have a daughter, and they probably know that I refer to my partner as my girlfriend. From that, if you read that we are not married, that is exactly right. And neither of us particularly believe in the institution of marriage as it is practiced in the Western world. That's not to say that we believe in the practice as it's practiced in the Eastern world either. We are committed to each other, and neither of us feel that we need a paper at the courthouse to tell everybody else that we're committed. Furthermore, I challenge you to find a more committed set of parents than she and I are together. So this is not, however, in direct response to Darren, because I know Darren to be a quite a careful thinker. And I suspect that when he said marriage, he would happily just say two people, I think, because Darren is a careful thinker. And so to give him the best philosophical hearing possible, it could have just been the reflex of writing marriage versus partnership, which I think is pretty culturally dominant. So I don't know. We'll have to let Darren weigh in on that. But I see no reason to think that marriage is required by two people to raise a child successfully, to be committed to each other. In fact, there's a whole group of people who had marriage denied to them, well, up until 2015, that lived in committed relationships, and society didn't want them to. We refused to acknowledge their existence. So no, I don't believe in marriage. I think marriage is the kind of cultural and religious morass that we can do better than if we try, and we should do better. And I know that you and I have talked about this in the run-up, so I'll hand it back to you, because I think it's worth talking about reform of marriage so that we can all feel good about that institution if we have to keep it.
Okay. So I'm going to do a little bit of inside baseball up front on the podcast because I don't have time to edit. But are we both in agreement that 2 o'clock is a hard stop for us?
Yes, I've got a show after this, and
Right.
I know that you've got a hard stop too.
Yeah,
Now,
okay.
that's not to say that we can't do more later, 4 o'clock, 4:30, something like that, but I do have a hard stop before that.
Okay. Well, good. At least you have something hard. So,
Oh,
wrong
you just
show.
wait.
Wrong
It's
show.
coming. Wait. Okay, that's
It's
also the wrong show.
yeah,
Okay.
no, yeah, wrong show. And we will see. The only reason I ask about the 2 o'clock thing is I just wanted to know how much I could get in here because I have two topics. So let me go ahead and introduce the other topic because I don't want to get too caught up on one topic and not mention the other one. So the other one that I want to talk about in this supplemental is divorce. And so this is something that Christians don't like to talk about, or when they do talk about it, they just talk about it as sin, as some kind of evil. So I think framing divorce in terms of sin and evil is itself one of the greatest evils we have done culturally. It's one of the greatest evils Christianity has, and religion, I would say, because it's not just Christianity, that religion has perpetrated on the world. Divorce is a good thing. So I told you guys I was going to get radical. Divorce is a really good thing. There's nothing bad about divorce. It's all upside. How do you like that for radical, Andrew? Here's the thing about divorce. Nobody gets a divorce if they're happy and their marriage is working out well for them. Okay, so I can't remember what comedian it was who said, people always say, man, I'm really sorry about your divorce. Why?
So,
Because happy people in a successful marriage don't get divorced. And so the only reason you can get divorced is if the marriage is miserable and need it to be dissolved. So
I
why
want to
would you
take
be
issue with
unhappy
that.
about someone's divorce? That's actually a good thing. Divorce is an out that is needed when you've got this kind of institution that has this artificial lock and key that says you can't get out, and if you do, you'll go to hell. That's the framing of divorce and religion. And you know who that hurts? Well, it hurts everybody. It hurts men, it hurts women, it hurts children. But I think it largely hurts women, keeps them in place in abusive situations and places when they should get out. And
I want to
so
take issue with
there's
part of
this
that,
social
actually.
stigma around getting out that should not be there. Divorce is just as happy a day as marriage, and I think that it just requires just a small tweak to our mindset before we can see that. Andrew?
Yeah, so I think I saw this year, actually, which is why I'm taking issue with the idea that divorce happens because the marriage isn't working. I think that's true, but possibly not in 100% of cases. So this year, I have a person in my social circle who got a divorce. He was unhappy and she was not. And so I just want to say that while in general I think yes, divorces happen because people are unhappy, it's not the case that in all divorces everyone who is a party to the divorce is unhappy or thinks the marriage is not working. Now, I am not saying that divorces where only one of the two people is unhappy is a less valid divorce. I don't think that it is. But I do want to say that in all cases of all divorces, not everyone is unhappy.
Okay, sure. Let me speak to that because just as you're um, a, the resident expert in taking care of kids while not married, I'm a resident expert in divorce. So, without revealing too much of my own personal life, let me just say you're gonna have a hard time finding someone with more experience at it. So,
So yes, I am not experienced in divorce because I think because you can't make me. You can't make me do the thing that requires divorces. So there it is.
yeah. So here's the thing that I would say in response, because I think that what you say is serious. However, it also is problematic. The challenge is if one person in the marriage is happy and the other person in the marriage is not, the one who's happy is deluded. So they're happy because they don't know the truth. They don't
Right.
they don't understand that the marriage is bad because the other person is happy. And here's the thing: if you're in a partnership and your partner is miserable, your partnership is miserable. And if you're happy on top of that, then it's just because you don't know. And so often, well, I wouldn't say often, but sometimes the declaration of divorce is the first time the other person um, hears that there's a problem with the marriage. But that just indicates that there was a huge, deep, really bad problem with the marriage, communication not being the only one of them. So
Yeah.
that's,
So in this case, that was true. Now, the eventual diagnosis, and I do mean diagnosis by a clinical professional, by a licensed psychologist, was that the person that was happy was also codependent.
yeah.
And to that end, I'll just ask people to recall what you said a few moments ago. Um, it's possible that, particularly men, right? Women may want out of a marriage where a man is completely happy. Why? Because he's dominant, and we are somewhat predisposed to like positions of dominance.
Sure, and
Right?
also men might
Um,
want women might want out of a marriage because the man is philandering with other women. So, and the man wants out of marriage because I kind of like this other lifestyle better.
well, because
I'm
maybe he
just
wants to philander, right?
right, and so I mean I'm just saying it's and if he keeps his philandering a secret, the woman might think the marriage is going swimmingly. Well, guess what? It's not, and the divorce is actually good for you. It's still good for you, even if you were happy up to the moment that you just heard about, the philandering and your husband wants a divorce. You ought to want a divorce at that point. Now we can talk about marriage counseling and trying to communicate and figure out what the problem is and trying to work out a solution. I'm okay with that. Okay, I'm actually in favor of that. But the fact of the matter is, when the problem is just fundamentally that we got married too young, I'm not, I was happy then, I'm not happy now, I'm a little bit more mature, and this isn't the life for me. I don't care whether you think that's a good reason or not. Your marriage is done. And if someone stays in the marriage under those circumstances and they feel trapped, you don't have a marriage anymore. You have a prison.
So I'm not a clinician. I have no expertise here, but I do have a lifetime of observation. We all have lots of friends and distant acquaintances and closer acquaintances, that sort of thing. And in my experience, um, it is possible, barely, to save a marriage through counseling for some period of time. I don't know that I know of a single instance where a marriage was saved forever, if you will, in scare quotes, by counseling. And I'll say that in the cases, in every single case I'm aware of, where one or both of the people in the couple, because we haven't talked about polygamous relationships yet, in cases where one or both also sought individual counseling as well as marriage counseling, in every one of those cases that I know of, the marriages were dissolved, because very often marriages that are composed of people who are psychologically unhealthy have to be dissolved when they become healthy, because the marriage is based on unhealthy aspects of psychology, like codependence.
Exactly. And you can bring children into it. Maybe a woman, using a woman as an example again. Look, as a preacher, I was privy to all kinds of marriage circumstances, right? And I'm sure, Andrew, that you were too during your time in the church.
Yes.
But I've seen every configuration of legal church marriages, and I know what they look like. And I can tell you that some of those relationships that last for 30, 40 years were some of the most miserable people you've ever met. Is that a successful marriage? I don't think so. But the church would consider it so, and society would consider it so, even though you got a couple of people that are pretty miserable. Children is one of those big codependency uh, red flags. When a woman is getting married and she has children, by the way, nothing wrong with that, but she has children that she can't take care of. She has children that, without someone supporting her, uh, she would be lost. First of all, you've got to ask yourself, why is she trying to lock someone into a contract to do that? I mean, because you don't actually need marriage to find someone committed to helping you raise your children. But just think for a moment, what happens when that woman does, after working nights and going to school, she gets her education, gets a degree, gets a much better job. Now she's making six figures, and she doesn't actually need the guy to help her raise her children anymore. Um, that's a major change of circumstances. And guess what? She gets to reevaluate that marriage. I would have said that marriage is a bad idea to start with. Anytime there's a codependent situation, that marriage is probably a bad idea to start with, because it's starting where either one or both people feel trapped, or without options, without the other.
Right now, so this is another sort of personal case, something a couple that is in my extended social circle. I'm not using them as truth of all cases where children are involved, but it's pretty plain that it's the case here. This young couple, they're in their early 20s, just got married. She has two children from a different unmarried relationship. She met her current husband a while back. They lived together for 8 or 9 months. Eventually got married. This young man that married her, he's a pretty good guy, and most of us in my social circle feel certain that he felt trapped by the children. He clearly loves these young kids. He's a good dad, but he is in the situation he's in because of the children, and we doubt very much, though we can't live an alternate history to know for sure. We doubt very much that he would be there were it not for the children. And so I think that's a cautionary tale, to the extent that anyone's willing to hear it, that a responsible adult should be very, very careful about instant family, right? Just add a marriage certificate. It's easy to feel trapped by children that need a good parent and children that need some financial support. So I just want to say, I'm not condemning any relationship where young people get married and one is more financially independent than the other. But the cautionary tale is that it may not be love that's driving these people together. And love and responsibility should not be confused with each other.
Right, and we come from a place where the term shotgun wedding is still used. So a lot of the listeners may not know what a shotgun wedding is. Let me just tell you briefly what a shotgun wedding is. Shotgun wedding is the preacher's son, 16, knocked up the elder's daughter, also 16, and now we got a problem. Uh, Preacher's son does not want to get married. Elder's father cocks the shotgun, puts it at the preacher's son's head. We have a wedding. And
Right.
now
So
suddenly this family is blessed. Okay, so that is essentially a shotgun wedding. It is a wedding that, colloquially speaking, one feels obligated to have because now there's a baby and you got to do it because society requires it.
you can tell how blessed the families are because of the acrimonious split in the congregation. Oh, sorry.
Well,
Different part of that
right.
story.
Here's the thing: shotgun weddings don't work. They don't make for good families. They don't make for lasting relationships. They lead to Christians having especially conservative Christians having the highest divorce rate in the among all people groups.
And they do not lead to good parenting. Well, let me be careful. For those of you who are now saying Andrew's using an absolute, no, I'm not. However, I challenge you to find a case where it leads to good parenting.
It's you
So
might find someone who is naturally a good parent who finds themselves in that situation. You might find
sure.
someone who develops into a good parent in that situation. But if we're talking about situations that lead to best outcomes, that's a situation that generally leads to worst outcomes. And so
Um,
it's one that you want to avoid when at all possible. Shotgun weddings are a bad idea, and they are generally very religiously motivated.
well, and in fact, um, we as a society should avoid all marriages where children have children.
Yeah. So
So,
okay. So let me swerve into the topic of divorce very quickly. Besides my earlier rant, I'm putting that out there. I want to stir the pot. Divorce is a good thing. Anyway, um, here's the it's even for children. You think that did it? You think that's enough? You think I'll get some
well,
reaction now?
there was sorghum on the fertilizer a minute ago. Then there was kerosene on the sorghum. We've got a volatile situation. Let's see how far you go with it.
I feel perfectly confident in saying that, enough so that I am saying it in public, and I've thought about it for years before doing so, and I'm ready to take on the debate this Saturday with Russell, who will not have listened to this podcast. But
More's the pity.
you guys who want to take me to task in the comments. By the way, the people who take me to task in the comments are just as often atheists as they are Christians. So feel free to do that. The knives out. I'm ready. Yeah, I think divorce is ultimately a good thing, even when children are involved, for the most part. And I will say, just qualifying here so that you don't get too exercised. It's a good thing, relatively speaking. So, for instance, if you have parents that really want to get divorced, really should get divorced, and they're staying together just for the sake of the children. Let me tell you, that marriage, first of all, the children know that your marriage is fucked, okay? So you're not fooling anybody. The children are still just as broken, and they're probably going to suffer uh, different kinds of abuses and psychological traumas because their parents are fighting all the time, and you are actually giving them a worse model for their own marriage growing up than you would if you just broke up and did the weekends thing. Now, that's not optimal, but it's better than what you're doing to them now. So
It is
anyway,
possible. It is possible. And we have a term. In fact, we have several terms like this. I don't know if this one is still in vogue. Blended families was a term a decade ago. I don't know that that's still a common term. Non-traditional families was also a term. Um, It's possible to be a child and come out of those families perfectly fine. But what often happens, and speaking in this case from far too much experience, what often happens is the children become some sort of a poker chip, passed back and forth in the pot. And the reason for that is because the people who got married were too immature to realize the commitment they were making, and they're too immature to raise their kids. It is possible, though, for well-intentioned, mature adults to go their separate ways and raise productive, happy children. The reason we don't see much of it is frankly because we place too high an importance on marriage licenses. So I'll say that again. The reason we don't see enough children being raised healthy in blended families is because we place too much importance on marriage licenses. Sorry, I was looking for a match. Do you think that did it?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll watch the comments and see if they blow up in my face.
I'm actually quite serious about it.
Yeah. No, I know. Look, when I was growing up, the vast majority of everyone I knew was from a blended family. They either had a single parent and were raised by a community, if you will, or they were raised by a step something.
Right.
Right. And I was actually a freak growing up because I had one set of parents. There were no steps in my house. And the parents that I had then are the parents that I have now. They're still alive. That said, maybe in the show with Russell, I can tell you about some of the many and colorful ways children get screwed up, even in the most perfect looking family. So you're not, you think that you're protecting your kids by staying together. Yeah, let's maybe survey a few serial killers and see if that's true. So that said, we got to wrap up. Divorce. There are times when even if you don't like the idea of divorce, you should be a champion for divorce. So the Bible, we've actually talked all this time, and it's the first time the Bible is coming up.
That will show you just how unimportant it is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was a match.
Yeah. And yet it sits at the heart of so much of what's wrong with marriage. The Bible says a couple of things about divorce. So one thing I think that we can clearly get from the Bible, if you can clearly get anything from the Bible, is that in Jesus' mind, there's nothing good about divorce. Divorce is bad. And in fact, if you're tempted to say, well, divorce was allowed in the Old Testament, so it couldn't be that bad. No, Jesus, his spin on that is, well, God only allowed it, only allowed Moses to allow it. So he wasn't even saying that God allowed it. Moses allowed it because people were hard-hearted, because people were sinful, because people were evil. And you can go ahead and try to translate what that means. I don't exactly know, and I don't exactly care. It's just the framing of divorce in the Bible is that the only reason it was ever allowed for a period is because people were just so evil. If people weren't evil, if people were good, then divorce would never have been allowed, and divorce is always the worst of the options. The next thing you look at biblically with divorce is why divorce is allowed. So why is divorce allowed? One reason.
Matthew 19:9, Matthew 5:32. Those are your principal passages.
Sexual legitimacy. And our ideas of fidelity and infidelity really come from the ideas of sexual legitimacy. And so in biblical terms, it's all about sex. That's the only reason. So if your spouse sullies themselves by having sex with someone else, some other hairy animal, then you can divorce them. This is how important the Bible thinks sex really is, because of an institution that God hates and says is only allowed because of our sinfulness. He says, "Oh yeah, but if that other person is sexually infidel and unfaithful, divorce him." That's pretty much it. And this focus on sex and divorce really puts in sharp relief, I think, what marriage is to the Christian and to the God figure of the Christian, and why it's such a bad institution. So look at all of the reasons that was not given for divorce. Uh, I'll let you go first. Andrew,
Okay, all right.
can you think of a good reason for divorce that the biblical authors didn't seem to care about?
Well, so we're going to do this again in another show, I'm sure, but I'm going to go after uh, the standard definitions that I think the Bible so poorly misunderstands that it doesn't even include them. And in fact, one of them it recognizes as demon possession. So let's get started. Here are some good reasons for divorce of your spouse: neglect of your children. They're not being diddled at night. The other parent is simply neglectful of your child, and they will learn that neglect, and they're probably better off without that neglectful parent. Physical abuse. Jesus said, "Suffer the little children to come to me." However, he didn't recognize physical abuse as a legitimate reason to divorce. So you can just go ahead and conclude that, from my view, there's no way that you have a perfect Jesus, and there's no way I think he's worthy of being worshipped.
So let me throw in before you take all of the good answers. Spousal abuse, because you're thinking about kids because you have a kid, and so you're wearing kid-shaped glasses all the time. I, on the other hand, don't have a kid. I do have a spouse. I'm married, people. Try that one on for size. Anyway, yeah,
I
spousal
was going to
abuse.
get the spousal abuse.
I know you were going to get to spousal abuse, and I had to stop you while it was still on the table. Thank you.
You go right ahead.
Um,
I loudly agree, and for men or women, I don't care who's being abused, and I don't care whether it's physical or psychological, which is, by the way,
that's my follow-up to my answer. You had like two answers. Emotional abuse. I mean, steam's been taken out of it now. Emotional abuse. All abuse is abuse. And the Bible simply doesn't seem to care or notice that spousal abuse is a problem. But then again, the Bible treats wives as property.
Jesus should have known my girlfriend, dude. I'm just saying.
So many things that I cannot say to follow up with that. So
I do not know what's holding you back today.
Yeah,
but I'm glad you're being held back. Look, that was not a request.
Mm-hmm. No, there are other shows. So yeah, abuse is another one. I've got a couple more. But if you want to get in another one, go for it.
No, I punctured the steam boiler, so you go ahead. I'll give you the next one.
Fine. Financial irresponsibility. If you are in, once again, I don't care which spouse it is, could be the man, could be the woman. We have terrible financial education in this country. If you are a person who is constantly wrecking the family finances to the point where you can't pay rent, you can't buy food, you're struggling because the other spouse can't quit spending money or getting into debt and that sort of thing. I think that is also a good reason to dissolve the marriage. I like you. You're cute, good in bed, but this is not going to work because you are not a grown up. By the way, not a grown up. General um, immaturity. Men and women mature at different ages. When an 18-year-olds get married, the man is, I think, brain wise a little bit less mature even than the woman. Takes them both a while to grow up. But I think by the time you're 30, 35, and your husband won't get a job, and he's sitting on the couch full of dirty socks, eating Doritos, playing Xbox, that's a good enough reason. Out of there, out of there.
I've got work to do. Wow. I'm going to have to go and clean up the house, man. Okay. No, I'm kidding. I've got to add one to this, though.
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure that this is not a match. It looks like a torch. Let's see how it goes. Religious radicalism.
Oh yeah.
If-
And
if
yeah,
you are-
it's a torch.
Yeah. It looked pretty much like a torch. Having seen torches before, that's what it looked like. So religious radicalism. There are, if your spouse is attempting to raise your child in a cult and you know better and you're not doing something about it, both of you are abusing your children.
Yeah. By the way, if you are a Christian and your spouse is kind of an atheist activist, you should probably leave. If you give a damn about your faith, and you give a damn about how your children are raised, I would say that works the other way too. Because here's the thing: if you've got someone who's very religious and someone who's very not religious, one of you is lying to yourselves. One of you is not serious about what you believe. Um, especially if children are involved. If it's just you adults, maybe you enjoy, the back and forth. But you're gonna have to raise your kids one way or the other. And if one of them says, "Well, you can just do whatever you want," then they're not really serious about their position. And I think that may not bode well for marriage. Let me also throw in political incompatibility.
Oh, good one.
Political incompatibility is even worse in this country than it was when I was, just 20 years ago. It seemed like there was a time when we could disagree on things and still be partners politically, but the political landscape is such now where there are people with certain political, and let me just include social views, that I could not marry them. And if married to them and they developed these aberrant views, I could not stay with them. Simply couldn't. I wouldn't, for instance, stay married to a racist.
Hmm.
It wouldn't matter. That's not going to be in my house. And I would
Sure.
rather be miserable and alone than married to a racist.
I was looking over here in this box labeled torches, and it looks like there's another one left. And it says on the label, you got to tear the paper off these torches to light them, and on the paper, this one says sexual incompatibility.
Oh yeah.
It's I'm pretty sure it says torch, sexual incompatibility. Okay, so I do mean this, people. It is possible for sexual incompatibility to run so deep that you should separate. And if you're a Christian and you think I'm wrong, I really don't care. You need to get out more. And I mean that you need to get out more. If you're not shaped right together, it is possible for that to be bad enough for some people that the relationship is intolerable. I'm not saying that's true for everyone, But what I am saying is, if it's not true for you because you simply don't care about sexual compatibility over much, and neither does your partner, it does not mean that it is not that important to other people, and that you shouldn't be willing to acknowledge that that is a legitimate reason for them to go their separate ways. And if you're so immature that you can't see it, too bad.
There are a lot of women trapped in marriages who have never had an orgasm. And these are Christian women because their husbands don't have to be good at sex, and they're not. So yeah, sex is this really important thing to Christians, and yet sexual incompatibility isn't. It's kind of like, well, I didn't get a chance to try them out beforehand, and it turns out they're terrible, and now I'm stuck with them.
Yes, and I do not have a problem with and actually promote. Oh man, do we have time for this?
Nope.
How much time do we have? How many minutes? What do we?
8, less than 8.
Oh, okay. I am going to do this in less than 120 seconds. Yes, I promote premarital sex. If you were listening with your Christian ears and you just heard me say that it's okay for a bunch of teenagers to run around and have sex, that's not what I said. However, I do think that it is perfectly fine. And in fact, I would probably recommend young adults looking to marry to give it a test drive first.
Well, if you have not had sex with the person that you're going to be spending the rest of your life with, A, there's something wrong with you, but B, you are making a huge mistake. You just are. I'm going to throw one other on this list. It's wrong. I shouldn't be adding to this list, but I'm going to add to it anyway. A incompatible health concerns. So let's say
can be quite demanding.
Yeah, this can hurt a marriage so bad. Let's say that when you got married, you were both young and slim and athletic, and somewhere along the line, one of you expanded your waistlines.
One of you hit 40.
Maybe tacked on some diabetes to it. I'm not saying that that's a reason to walk away from your spouse. What I am saying is if the other person does not respect the fact that, okay, I can't have sugar now. I've got to eat differently. I've got to find ways to exercise that are going to be challenging, and I need someone who can help me do that, who can partner with me and not sabotage me. If the other person is not willing to make the kinds of changes that make that work, then that's an incompatibility that I think is worthy of a divorce. Now, it doesn't have to end that way. The couples can negotiate. They can work something out. But health incompatibility is a major problem where one person really cares about dietary concerns and the other person doesn't. That might work with best friends not living together, but it can't work well with couples who have to buy groceries together.
We've both known each other a long time. We're both severely visually impaired. And this is one of those conversations that my girlfriend and I have had. And if you have a medical incompatibility, I will say, and you're worried about it in your current relationship, I urge you to go with completely open hands and completely open hearts to your spouse and say whatever is on your mind. In my relationship, I have actually, I've talked to my girlfriend and encouraged her that if my visual impairment becomes too much for her, that she be willing to go our separate ways. I meant it when we got together 6 years ago. I mean it today. Will it be easy for me? Hell no, it won't be easy. But yes, I absolutely mean it. Um, there are things that we should carry on our own. And it is possible that you have medical conditions that you can't carry on your own. But in some ethical sense, to me, requiring the person closest to you to carry it with you because of a public formality is entirely wrong thinking.
Yeah.
I want the people closest to me to be those who have the most freedom. Will it hurt if she walks away? Hell yes, it will hurt. But I will help her pack if she needs to.
Yeah, only so that you can put the dynamite in the bag. But
Well, yeah, that box isn't empty yet. It still says torch over there. Man, that box. It's the fishes and loaves.
Hey, Andrew's girlfriend. Just a word of advice: if you leave, don't let him help you pack. So I'm just saying. Look, let me add to that in a very serious note, because I know that there are people with disabilities out there that are worse than ours. I've been in a wheelchair twice in my life. So I have a flavor of what some of that looks like. Some people never get out of the wheelchair. So that's a whole nother lifestyle, right? It's not a small change. It's it's an amazingly large change. I've also had post-op conditions that required an in-home or a nurse to come and visit 3 times a week. It is simply not fair to take away your spouse's sex life because of your incapacity, and to turn your spouse into a full-time nurse because of your incapacity. Um, and look, if you're very lucky and you have someone who can bend their life to that, that's great. But if the only reason someone is doing that is because they are bound by a contract, then you shouldn't want them there anyway. And if it's really love that's holding you together, the contract isn't what's holding it together. And so if a marriage needs to dissolve when those things happen, as bad as that is for the person suffering the disability, it's better than if you try to make a person stay when in their hearts they're going to be miserable for the rest of their life. And this is where some negotiation, some serious adult negotiation has to happen. And we're too emotionally immature as a species to do what needs to be done and have the kinds of conversations that need to be had. Yes, I'm paralyzed from the waist down. Okay, then can I fuck other people? Yes. Okay, we've got to, if you want to make it work and you want the people you love to also love you and be free, then you can't say, "Oh well, life has taken this turn," but you're stuck. You signed the dotted line, fool. Um, that doesn't work for me. So once again, this is a supplemental. We have hit our mark. I'm going to leave it there. No time for fancy conclusions, except to say, um, Russell and I will tussle with this subject one more time, and so it's going to go on the board another week. Please bring bring your comments and questions. We'll try to adjust as many of them on this show as possible. Mac Attack, I see you. I see you. I'd love to comment in detail to your post. I've actually invited you to come on the show. If you want to come on the show on Saturday, Saturday at 10 o'clock, that's when we're going to do it, 10 o'clock Eastern. So indicate to me that you would like to do that, and you're there. Darren, if you want to come on for a few minutes and defend your position or add something to it, since I've called you out on the show, you are welcome to do that as well. If anyone wants to be in the comments on the show. I will open that up to people. Just send me an email, and I will make sure that you can get in the back channeling and madness that happens in the chat in the discussion when we're actually doing shows. Okay, so that's it for now. Andrew, proscenium, still unbelievable. We got anything, any last thing to say that you can say in 20 seconds or less?
Yes, two last thoughts actually. By forcing someone to stay in a relationship where you're incompatible, by not allowing you to go out and have freedom, like having sex with someone else because you're not a compatible partner, by forcing them to stay, you're not running less of a risk of losing them. And if you think you're, sending them out to have sex, allowing them that freedom is going to cause you to lose them, it is certainly not higher risk than what you're already running. And yes, my girlfriend and I are both aware that we have a child, and I fully expect that whatever my problems are, she does the calculus and figures our child into any decision she might make in the future, no matter how free I offer for her life to be. So those are my two closing thoughts, maybe slightly more than 20 seconds. Thanks, everyone. Hope you subscribe both here and to the Reason Press show, Still Unbelievable. And Proscenium, David, thank you for having me.
All right, and that's it for now.